Monday, June 12th, 1939. Bobby Jack Fowler is born in Merkel, Texas. No one knows it yet, but Bobby was going to spend the rest of his life as a violent criminal, convicted of numerous charges, and would be implicated in rapes and murders across Canada and the United States. I'm your host, Adam, and this is CrimeNet TV. Almost nothing is known about Fowler's early life, but a troubling pattern emerges after the death of his father, Selva Fowler, in 1968. Beginning in 1969, when he was charged with the murder of a man and woman in Texas, but was only convicted of discharging a firearm within city limits. Fowler took to what he referred to as a rabbiting around lifestyle, traveling to British Columbia, Florida, Texas, Louisiana, Oregon, South Carolina, Arizona, Tennessee, and Washington State. He enjoyed doing this in old beat-up cars and picking up hitchhikers. He became an alcoholic and had extensive use of methamphetamines. He worked as a transient construction worker and roofer, and it appears that in 1969 he was arrested and spent time in a Tennessee prison for sexual assault and attempted murder. Before 1973, Fowler was released from prison, and during this time in 1973, he made his way to Clearwater, British Columbia, unbeknownst to local authorities. Friday, October 19th, 1973. Gail Reyes disappears after traveling between Clearwater and Kamloops, British Columbia. Her body would be discovered on April 6, 1974. Tuesday, November 6, 1973, Kamloops region, British Columbia. Pamela Darlington disappears. She had been hitchhiking to a local bar. Fowler may have even had to try to beat a train across the tracks to avoid being seen committing his act. Darlington's body is discovered on November 7th, 1973. RCMP investigators notice a strong similarity and connection in the disappearances and homicides of both Darlington and Ways. Tuesday, April 9th, 1974. Lac La Hiche, British Columbia. Colleen Ray McMillan goes missing. After telling her brother that she would be leaving the house and instructing her brother not to tell their parents she was hitchhiking, she is described by her brother as a sweet and innocent girl. McMillan's body is discovered off a logging road 46 kilometers south of where she had been last seen. December 13th, 1974. Terrace, British Columbia. Monica Ingris goes missing. She was last seen at about 11 p.m. walking by herself along Highway 16 toward her home. On April 6, 1975, her body was discovered close to a heavily wooded Forest Service road. Despite the similarity in all four cases, they would remain unsolved and cold for many years. And it appears at some time during 1975, Fowler may have left British Columbia, Canada, and his whereabouts are unknown until 1983 in Iowa. During a fit of rage, Fowler pours gasoline on his neighbor's house and threatens to set it ablaze. He was arrested and charged with second-degree arson, but after only 2 years and 7 months, he found himself paroled. Sunday, May 3rd, 1992, near Beverly Beach State Park, Oregon. Just after midnight, Sheila Swanson, 19, and Melissa Saunders, 17, made a phone call from a payphone after camping. Their bodies were discovered on October 10th, 1992. Fowler is believed to have committed these murders. Saturday, January 28, 1995, Newport, Oregon. Jennifer Essen, 16, and Clara Lees, 16, are last seen leaving a friend's house. They are later discovered in February of that year, strangled and covered with brush. And again, Fowler escapes justice. All 4 of these homicides additionally remain unsolved, as well as the 4 homicides that occurred in British Columbia years earlier. Wednesday, June 28th, 1995, Newport, Oregon. A woman jumps out of a Tides motel window, rope still tied to her foot. She managed to survive Fowler's attacks and reported it to the police. Fowler was then arrested. Monday, January 8th, 1996. Fowler has his day in court and is convicted of numerous charges. He was given a 16-year and 3-month sentence for his part in the Newport, Oregon motel incident.
Tonight, investigators have new evidence that could link him to 4 murders in Oregon and more than a dozen around the Northwest.
Well, the news of DNA evidence linking Fowler to a murder of a Canadian teen came along with news that he could be responsible for the deaths of 4 Oregon teens in the 90s. After 17 years, detectives say they finally have a break in the case.
Says not a day goes by he doesn't think about his daughter. 15-year-old Jennifer Essen disappeared in January 1995. She was last seen in Newport walking with a friend, 16-year-old Carol Lease. Loggers found their bodies weeks later. He says Fowler is a person of interest in at least 4 murders, including the deaths of 17-year-old Melissa Sanders and 19-year-old Sheila Swanson. They disappeared in Lincoln County in 1992. For the past 17 years, the case has been cold. That all changed in May when Canadian authorities submitted a DNA sample from a 1974 murder to a global database. Thanks to new technology, they got a match in Newport, Oregon. Bobby Jack Fowler.
Investigators have re-examined past investigative findings, re-interviewed witnesses, followed up on new leads or tips, and re-examined or submitted exhibits. It is those efforts that have led us here today to announce a significant break. The break has to do with the 1974 disappearance and murder of 16-year-old Colleen McMillan. Fowler is responsible for the murder. His last conviction was in Newport, Oregon for a 1995 violent attack against a woman where he served 10 years and died of natural causes while in custody in May 2006 at the age of 66.
It has been a long wait for answers, and although it is a somewhat unsatisfactory result, because this individual won't have to stand trial for what he did, we are comforted by the fact that he was in prison when he died, and that he can't hurt anyone else.
He became involved because of the similarity of the British Columbia cases to our Lincoln County cases.
For some families of the murdered teens, news of a suspect will bring closure. Floyd says he's already come to terms with his loss.
My biggest problem was the guilt I felt because I wasn't there to protect my daughter. That's the biggest thing. That and losing her. I believe in the hereafter, and I know I'm sure I'll see her again. My mother passed away in '02, and I'll see her and my mother and everybody else. You know, I got comfort in that.
Investigators have pieced together a timeline of Fowler's whereabouts over the past 40 years, but they need help filling in the holes, especially around the time of May 1992. That's when Sheila Swanson and Melissa Sanders disappeared. They're now asking for tips from the public. Reporting.
He is suspected of potentially 20 homicides over the course of his life across various states and by various agencies. Fowler was a contributor to both the Ghosts of Highway 20 and the Highway of Tears in British Columbia. For more information on these mysteries, watch one of our videos on the topic, or watch our video on the one country boy killer, Cody Lajabukov, a 20-year-old responsible for 4 homicides involving young girls and women. He may be the youngest contributor to the Highway of Tears recorded yet. The true extent of Bobby Jack Fowler's crimes are unknown, but he truly was a real-life devil's reject. I'm your host Adam, and thanks for watching CrimeNet TV. Consider supporting the channel and subscribing for more stories like these.